Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to video message number 185. If you don't know me by now, before November the 8th, you're damn sure gonna know who I am. I'm Joseph Maldonado, running for the President of the United States. One reason that I stepped my foot in this race is to confront the government corruption. Now, I know a lot of you think that I'm strictly in this for the animals and my own agenda, but I'll promise you, if you watch the rest of my videos, you'll see I can solve Social Security, the hungry, the veterans, our country's deficit, and many other things. But today, we are going to confront one of the most horrid, government corrupt organizations there is, and that is the United States Department of Agriculture. Now what I'd like you to do is share this on every politician's wall you can find, because this is an open invitation to Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders to attend the 2016 summit in Charleston, Missouri on June the 24th and 25th, and let 62 million people that are affected by this corruption in the United States confront what they're going to do to put a stop to it. You see, here in the United States, we have a Secretary of Agriculture who governs the United States Department of Agriculture, and it affects farmers, ranchers, the entire meat industry, the egg industry, the milk industry, and the pet industry. And what I'm doing is I want to call, as a presidential candidate, for an investigation and hearings by Congress about the corruption that you're about to see. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not a member of one of these organizations, which are animal rights people, trying to take your rights away from everything you do, from farming to having exotic animals, which is run by the Humane Society of the United States, a lady named Carol Baskin at Big Cat Rescue in Tampa, Florida, and all of the crooked politicians that are taking your rights away in order to receive funding for campaigns, dinners, and other contributions. What I'm asking for is very simple. Let's shake up the United States Department of Agriculture for a little while, and let's send the Western Division inspectors to the Eastern Division and vice versa. And let's see if somebody's being paid off or if somebody is playing favoritism. Because if you can look online, which is all public knowledge, about the inspection reports that are going on in the Eastern office versus the Western office, I would say something terrible is going on. These are some photographs from Big Cat Rescue, ladies and gentlemen, that would never pass a USDA inspection if it was being done right. First, we have water that is being pumped through a pond that used to be a junkyard. Still has the asbestos, batteries, cars, and everything else in it, and it is running through every entire cage with no filtration system. You, ladies and gentlemen, are donating to the tune of $4 million a year of your hard-earned money to have the animals living in these high weeds that any other facility would be written up for. More very high weeds, and it's nothing but a little jungle that they want to call a sanctuary. One other complaint is that anyone else would be written up for tree limbs hanging over cages. If you'll look at these photographs that I'm throwing up, the trees are part of the cages. Now, in a hurricane situation, ladies and gentlemen, I don't understand one way that they can pass any kind of an inspection when the tree is part of the cage. Take a real hard look at this picture. You can't even hardly see the animal. The cage is so overgrown with limbs, grass, and weeds, there's no way it can possibly be cleaned in order to make sure that there's no bacteria or diseases within the cage. Once again, look very, very closely how this tree becomes the actual cage. And we're talking in Tampa, Florida, right on the coast, ready for a hurricane. Another picture of another tiger cage with the limb completely going through the cage and the wire attached to the limb. Now, for $4 million a year, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I talked just a little bit about sanctuaries. And what is exactly a sanctuary? A sanctuary is nothing but a private owner There is no government-owned sanctuary in the world. Sanctuaries are nothing but a private owner that enjoys what they're doing, that has found a hobby and has found a way for you to pay for their hobby. Trust me, I used to be a sanctuary. Now, I'm an entertainer and I breed tigers for a living. Let me tell you what exactly a sanctuary gives somebody. It gives them authority. It makes them popular. It makes them alpha because they work with tigers. And it makes them money. Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled by the word sanctuary. Like I said, there's no government-run sanctuary, and you're funding someone else's hobby. For $4 million a year, would you say that these lions are living very happily at Big Cat Rescue in round cages of wire, shrubs, weeds, and trees? While you're working 40+ hours a week in order to fund Carole Baskin's hobby. Or let's ask another question. For $4 million a year, ladies and gentlemen, is this all we can afford to do big cats in? To live out peacefully in what? A sanctuary. What is the real definition of a sanctuary? It's a place of refuge and peace. This right here is what we call incredibly stupid. If you look really, really close at how this run is held together, it's held together with nothing more than what you would put your dog on a leash for a 400-pound tiger to be able to bust those apart and get out in the city of Tampa. Now let's take a trip to Carolina Tiger Rescue. Up there in the Carolinas, ladies and gentlemen, they're a sanctuary funded with your hard-working money and for her hobby. Would you exactly say this is a couple $1 million cage with absolutely no public barrier to protect the people from the cage? Or how about this one? For a couple $1 million a year, do you think that they could afford to build a better cage for their big tigers than that? Now this one here, I want you to look really, really close and see how shoddy, falling apart, and disgusting that sanctuary's cages are. Now we're still on Carolina Tiger Rescue, ladies and gentlemen, and this one right here is another prime example of where your hard-earned money is not going, and the United States Department of Inspectors are allowing this to get passed by with absolutely no write-ups and perfect inspection reports. Meanwhile, they're taking the people that are not in their solo little club and dragging them to court and making them spend $60,000 and $70,000 to defend themselves for less violations than what you're seeing on this screen. Now let's take a trip to Pat Craig's at the Wildlife Animal Sanctuary in Kingsburg, Colorado. One of the USDA laws is you have to properly thaw meat out from a deep freeze to a refrigerator to the cage. I'm gonna show you how they throw frozen meat right over the cage, ladies and gentlemen. And keep in mind, while you're looking at this picture, that is probably a 5'8" person throwing that meat over what is less than an 8-foot cage. Meanwhile, the rest of us in the United States have to put our cages up to 16 feet. Why is the Colorado Wildlife Animal Sanctuary, which is only an hour away from the Western USDA office, allowed to get away with so much stuff? Let's ask them this question. For $8 million a year, these lions are living in a concrete covert, buried into the ground, and you have to ask yourself, when it rains, where do these lions go to sleep? In a rain-filled culvert? Absolutely. This one right here is one of my favorites. The standards for the USDA to have a perimeter fence is 8 feet around your property in case an animal was to get loose within that property. If you'll take a note, that's my husband. He's 6'4", and that fence is no more than 2 foot above his head. But the gate is less than 5 feet on an exterior perimeter fence. Why does he have a variance to get away with this? I'll tell you in a minute. Here's the prime example of a sanctuary. This is the Colorado Wildlife Animal Sanctuary in Kingsburg, Colorado. $8 million a year while the animals live in concrete coverts, and he spent $2 million of that on a gift shop and a boardwalk. And this is not supposed to be exploiting animals for profit when he received over $8 million worth of donations. Now let's take a trip up north. This right here looks appropriate, doesn't? A house for a lion and a dog, ladies and gentlemen, made out of nothing but electrical spools for them to winter in. First clue is a lion doesn't belong in the mountains. Second clue is if we can raise money out of hardworking people, we should be able to afford more than a free electrical spool. Well, by golly, take a really close look at this picture. If you zoom in with your eyeballs, and you can see the nails and the screws that are protruding here, while the rest of us all get written up for anything compared to that. Here we go again, another over $1 million sanctuary with their animals living like this. Why? Because it's their hobby, it's their fun. Now let's take a trip back to Big Cat Rescue down there in Tampa, Florida, who doesn't want anyone using tigers for photo ops. She even tried to get us to stop allowing our employees of taking pictures with tigers and posting them on the internet. Not the general public, but every time you see something on her Facebook or her website, it's all about getting people to donate money to take their picture next to a full-grown tiger. This picture right here, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look very, very closely over the head of Howard Baskin, while him, Pat Craig, Carole Baskin, and everyone else is having a picnic at the Carolina Tiger Rescue. You see how that cage is about to fall in? But this is okay with those folks because they're all in a special club that's paying off or getting special treatment by the United States Department of Agriculture. One of my favorites is this picture right here. His name was Kenny. He lived at a place called Turpentine Creek over in Arkansas. And you know, that was the only white tiger on this planet that was ever born and looked like that. And every one of these folks with every one of these organizations is raising money, trying to get you to believe that every white tiger is born like this. And you, the general public, are handing your money over fist over fist to try and stop something that's never happened but one time in the entire world. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a real close look at this picture. The gentleman on the left is Pat Craig, the gentleman in the middle is Howard Baskin, and the lady on the right owns Carolina Tiger Rescue. And if you'll see where her left elbow is, next to that metal pole, that entire cage is being held up with barbed wire. Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of this is not to bash anybody else. I welcome this facility to be an Oklahoma rally. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the permission from the landowners. For Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders, if you want to win Oklahoma, which I can promise you you won't, as long as I'm still in this race, let's have a rally at the Greater Wynnewood Exotic Animal Park. And let's let the farmers of the state of Oklahoma ask you, the politicians of America, and the candidates that want to be the leader of our country, what you're going to do to stop the corruption within your cabinet if you were elected to be president. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure and put this everywhere you know, because once again, this is an open invitation to any politician, any presidential candidate, to come meet me and many others, such as Congressman King, and answer to why the hell this is going on. And let's clean up and kick out the lobbyists and the animal rights people out of a government agency, because it shouldn't be happening in the first place. I'm Joseph Maldonado, running for President of the United States. Be sure and get on www.joeexotic2016.com. And let's stir some shit up in this country that no one else wants to talk about. I'll see you tomorrow for video message number 186. Bye.